everybody? It is. What day is it today? It's Wednesday? Oh my god. I cannot believe it's only Wednesday. uh oh my gosh. It turns out I had the day off on Monday, so I was surprised when I woke up incredibly early in the morning and then didn't go to work, so I was still tired for the rest of the day. And additionally, I get the day off on Friday. So, oh my god. You know what I might do? I might just start streaming Death Stranding a little bit early and then just have a super long day of streaming. Isn't that amazing? But yeah, it is the middle of the week, and yet for me, it's pretty close to another long weekend. So, I am feeling somewhat tired, somewhat energetic. But today specifically, I am here. Whoop, don't want to do that. To see what I can do about trying to design a card game. I've been a huge fan of card games for a really, really long time. When I was really little, my dad introduced me to Yu-Gi-Oh! Does anybody know Yu-Gi-Oh? Oh my god. Everybody should know Yu-Gi-Oh! Even if you don't like Yu-Gi-Oh! Nowadays it's kind of gotten a little out of hand. It's a little bit goofy. But I still appreciate it for what it is and what it meant to me at the time. But since then I've played so many different kinds of card games. I've played what was it at the time? I think it was Duel Masters, which was like a weird anime derivative of Magic the Gathering. Also, I played Magic the Gathering. I played things like Hearthstone. I've played a bunch of the roguelite card games like Slay the Spire or Monster Train or Inscription. I find that card games as a genre fit me very well because I think that each of the cards themselves separately are always interesting. They're always either a character or a story, and I think that's or a story sort of compressed into one single very small piece of the game, and then all comes together in like your 30 or 40 or 50 or however big it is card deck. I think just having a billion different types of pieces that can be rearranged and used and put together in different types of forms is incredibly attractive to me. So what I would like to do today is try to design and develop a card game about VTubing, because that's what I'm doing now. I'm a VTuber. And of course, as all VTubers do, every single thing I have to do or talk about surely must come back to VTubing. So I posted on Twitter a little bit ago, trying to ask for people to, or looking for people that might be interested in sort of giving me permission to just borrow them to use in the card game. Turns out not that many people see my tweets, so I didn't get that many people responding to it. I mean, I think like maybe one person did, but that's okay. You know what I can do? I can design primarily the actual game component to it, and then we'll see where we go from there. I'm thinking I'm actually thinking of probably using some of the more popular VTubers just as a very basic template, because I think that'll, when it comes to games, the way I think about games. So I've never designed a game. I've never actually gone out of my way to design a game from scratch and build a game up and put one together. But when it comes to the way that I think about games and game design, is I feel as though the theme informs the mechanics, and the mechanics inform the theme. And I think it's difficult to me to think about each of those separately without thinking of them as without thinking of how they work together as one whole project, you know? So for instance, I know that some people might be purely numbers and mechanics driven in terms of their thought process and the process of creating and designing. And some people are purely creative, purely uh, whimsical and story driven and all that. Uh, I'm sort of a mix in between. I feel as though if I don't have a solid foundation of one of those two, my ideas don't really come together in that sense. For instance, I had when I decided to start VTubing, I sort of had an idea of what I wanted to do, and also I had an idea of who I wanted to be. And those kind of informed each other as I started putting everything together. So, I think that having just a very base idea, having a good base of the sort of characters and stories and themes of the game is very, very good. So I think, just as a very basic template, let me see. Who should I use? You know, I think it might just be easiest to look at Hololive and sort of use their generational themes and character designs to help inform how I want to design the game. So I'm just gonna, you know, pop this up in another tab. You guys won't see it. All you guys see is my drawing screen. So, didn't really think about how I wanted to do this. So how do I want to actually begin the design process? I've had a few ideas for what I wanted to do for this game for a little while now. I want it to be something very simple. Let me just write some of these down. So, I want to have very solid pillars of design. I want a few things that I absolutely need to be part of this game no matter what, and I will design around that. I am going to create a structure using a couple pillars. So, pillar number 1. I want it to be simple. I want it to be easy to play, easy to get into, very easy to understand, very few explicit rules. When I say explicit rules, I mean the very base mechanics of the game. In Monopoly, the explicit rules are you take your dice, you roll them, and you move that many spaces on the board, you buy a property, and then if you land on someone else's property, you pay the money. Those are the very base explicit rules of the game. It's very simple to understand, very easy to get into before you get into the more complicated, more complex mechanics that require a deeper understanding of the game. Additionally, those sort of more complex mechanics are where things get a little bit fuzzy for people. You know, when you play Monopoly or Uno, everybody plays different. You kind of have your own house rules. It turns out the more complicated parts of Monopoly are not fun and difficult to remember. But what's more important is I'm actually going to extend this a little bit. It's going to be a simple base, or pillar number 1, a very simple base. I want you to have 2 to 5 very specific and easy to understand mechanics for playing out the game. That's going to encompass the gameplay loop and how you interact with other people, and how you interact with how you play out your turns, and how you sort of how do I say that? I don't want to say how you try to win the game, because that's more in the more complex and less explicit mechanics. just sort of how you play the game on a very base level. Uh, so that's number one. I wanted to have a simple base. That is one of my. Actually, I'm not gonna bother drawing like a visual metaphor. That is one of my pillars. Pillar number one, a simple base. Pillar number two, what I want. What do I want? What else do I want for this game? Because I feel like I haven't really thought about the things that are absolutely necessary for the game. I mostly just thought about the theme and the mechanics and how much fun it would be to do. What I think, so I have a number one, I have a simple base. It's going to be very easy to understand, not too complex base mechanics. Number two, I want for the game, for one session, no, maybe not one session, for one game to be relatively short. It has, number one, simple gameplay. Number two, very short games. I want games to be done in less than an hour. Actually, less than maybe 30 minutes. I want it to be a very simple, very short game that anyone can play. You play a game and you're done. Oh my god. You take out your cards, you play the game, and you put them away. And you can do that anytime you want. I want that to be one of my main pillars. It's going to be a simple game. It's going to have a simple base. Games are going to be relatively short. I don't want them to be super fast. It's not like tic-tac-toe quick, but I want you to be able to do it without having to spend a super long amount of time. Because, games like maybe Risk or Monopoly are games that tend to take a long time, maybe an hour plus. I know Risk takes an unusually long amount of time. Tabletop war games such as Warhammer and Warhammer 40k, they tend to take hours. Oh my god, they take hours, sometimes even days, and you have to quit and come back. Like 4X games like maybe Civilization, where you have to slowly build out, and if you have more than 2 or 3 people, games last forever. Oh my god, that's insane. Have you ever played Civilization and just thought, wow, we're still playing? Yeah, I don't want a game that would require that long of play. And I think that typically card games tend to be on the shorter side anyway. At the same time, I don't want it to be Yu-Gi-Oh! Speed, where if you don't win in the first few turns, then you obviously lose. It takes like 10 minutes. So maybe somewhere between 20-30 minutes of game time. Number 3. I want... how do I word this? So what I'm thinking for this game is I want this is gonna be the most arty sort of game designy things that I could say, but I want the cards to actually feel like the VTubers. I want them to feel like the characters. And I think that's generally I think that's how do I word this in something really in a very simple short term? I want I want it to feel like you're actually playing the VTubers. I want the characters to feel like they're not just all the same thing. Actually, no, maybe that's not correct. I sort of want it to I don't want every card to be incredibly unique and wacky. Though that is something I do enjoy. I want consistency. But I still want things to feel flavorful. How do I put that into words? I want consistency in the cards. As in, I don't want every single card to be incredibly wild and unique and wacky. And yet, I want it to still feel flavorful. I'm going to say I want to fulfill fantasy, and you may notice that my handwriting is very, very, very bad. This might not 100% apply to what I'm trying to do here, because I just realized fulfill has 2 L's. Does it? Wait, no. Yeah, it does. Or I want the cards to fill the fantasy of representing the characters that they're about. But you necessarily aren't the VTubers themselves. So I think I have to find a way to sort of incorporate making it feel like the character. So the weird thing is this would be, I think this is going to be my 3 main pillars. I think these are my 3 primary pillars of the game that I have to fulfill. I think that it's very kind of weird to make a game about live streamers because they're sort of people, but simultaneously, VTubers, well, streamers in general, but most especially VTubers, are part actual person that you see on screen, that talks to you, that sort of has conversations about life and is easy to understand as a person, as a human being, but are also somewhat putting up an act and somewhat putting up a character. It's sort of a blend between putting their real selves out there and also being a little bit different for the sake of entertainment. Being just a little bit different for the sake of entertainment. Yeah. So that's the weird thing about making a game in which the characters are all streamers or VTubers. So what I'm thinking is I want to primarily focus on the characters and the character archetypes and the character backstories with a little bit of their personality interspersed in between some of those cards. So let's see. What am I thinking? I've been thinking about what kind of game I want this to be. So if it's a very simple card game with very short games, what I don't want is some sort of back and forth turn-based TCG trading card game or CCG collectible card game, such as your Pokemons or your Magic the Gatherings or your Yu-Gi-Ohs or your Hearthstones. I don't want that sort of gameplay where it's mostly a turn-based thinking game a la chess. I think chess is a very easy parallel to draw when it comes to card games, despite the fact that chess is pure decision making and none of the randomness. I think in terms of the overall idea and concept of the game, I think that chess is a good analogy for those types of games where each player takes turns thinking of a move and thinking of the moves that their opponent can make. And what ends up happening in those games is you spend a lot of time during your turn trying to think about what you're doing. And then depending on the game, you play out your actions and sometimes you get interrupted. But it's generally a couple minutes of thinking and preparing, and then you make your turn. And then the other person goes, and it's a couple minutes of thinking and preparing, and you make your turn, and then the other person goes. I do enjoy thought and strategy in my card games, but I think for the sake of having a very simple and very short game, I think that it needs to be a game in which turns are short, and while you do make interesting decisions and strategic moves, I want you to have a very small array of decisions. So where in a chess game, you may have, how many pieces are on a chessboard? It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 16. It's like 16 pieces. Yeah, it's 16 pieces. I don't know why I had to Google that. I knew it was 16 pieces. But you know, when you're when you're a streamer, you assume that everybody is going to point out that you're wrong, despite the fact that there's no one here right now. It occurs to me that my desktop audio is off, but I didn't have anything. You know what? There we go. That makes sense. Should turn on my BGM for this, because that makes more sense than sitting here in utter silence looking at a blank screen. So in chess, you might have, each turn, you have 16 pieces in which you can interact with. And of those 16 pieces, they typically have between 2 to 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but between like 2 and 8 different ways they can move, and an incredibly vast amount of spaces in which they can move. Alex Fan, hello, welcome. I want to make a card game. I think card games are cool, and I'm gonna make it about VTubers. So I think it's gonna be, I think that'll end up being a fun way to sort of interact with the overall VTuber community and sort of just appeal to what I think people like about VTubers is, you know, having a bunch of VTubers. So yeah, chess, you have an incredible amount of choices in your turn. I want this to be a short game, I want this to be a simple game, so I want to limit the array of choices that you have. You still have interesting decisions, you still have complex mechanics, you still have choices that matter. I want you to have choices that matter, but I'm going to limit that. So what I'm thinking is, let me start by writing down what kind of game it is. It is a card game, of course. Whoop. It is a card game. Very clearly, it's a card game. It is going to be sort of, I'm thinking, a party game. And that means it's going to be a game that you can maybe introduce to new people very quickly. You can teach the rules very easily. If everybody understands and likes the theme of the game, everybody will be able to get into it really easily and figure it out and understand it and maybe enjoy it. So it's a card game, it's a party game. And what I'm thinking for the type of card game that it is, I'm thinking of making it a Trump game. What do I mean when I say Trump game? I mean things like Uno or Big Two or Cheat. It's games where the object of the game is to play a card that supersedes the previous card So basically, one person maybe has a hand of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards, and then the other person has their hand of cards. No. It 100% doesn't mean what you think it means. On the topic, what I'm assuming I know what you mean. And if we are both thinking the same thing, if we have a psychic connection through the screen, I actually have a funny story about that. So there's this YouTuber / Twitch streamer that I watch sometimes who plays Hearthstone, which is another card game, and his name is Trump, but that name Trump comes specifically from the card game archetype of Trump games, in which the object of the game is to trump the opponent's cards, because Trump is a word. It's an actual word that has existed. Whoops, didn't want to do that. But yeah, sometimes I'm like, oh, I like Trump. I think Trump's cool. He's a great YouTuber and Twitch streamer that plays card games. Mr. E. So, first of all, welcome to the stream. What I was thinking is that I was going to call out to the VTuber community and ask people if they were interested in being the focus of a card game that I want to make. Unfortunately, that didn't quite super pan out, so not that many people responded. I got one response. I'm, for now, as a temporary way to inform the mechanics via a consistent theme, I'm going to use Hololive as a template. I'm using Hololive as a template. It's a temporary template. And then we'll, as I slowly develop and create the game, I'll see where we go from there, because if I can get enough people interested, then I can make a very base set of cards using those people and their stories and things they've done. For now, I'm using Hololive as a temporary template. But we'll see where we go from there. Because I'm also thinking that if I ever collab with people, I would make cards based off of them as well. It depends on if I can get people to give me permission to sort of use them, you know? I don't know how to say it without sounding weird. It's like, use them or give me permission for their likeness, you know? But yeah, so I need to move this. So the concept of a Trump game is a game in which you have one person. Well, not really sponsor. It's just because it would feel weird to sort of maybe. I feel like if I'm using people's likeness without their permission, it feels like I'm abusing their image, you know? I don't know. It's one of those things that feels weird. It doesn't feel super weird about doing it with corporate VTubers because you know, they're large and they already have a community, and they are all about fan works and fan art and having their likeness be used by the community, because it's sort of more of a community building thing at that point. Whereas if I used indie VTubers and VTubers that just like smaller singular VTubers that are more personal in how they interact with their communities, it might come off as weird. So I don't know. So it feels more like I have to get permission. So for now, just as a very base template, I want to use Hololive because I'm familiar enough with them that I can sort of have a good idea of what kind of theme that I want to put together with them. So anyway, yes, the idea of a Trump game, which is the type of game that I want this to be, is you have maybe one player over here with their hand of 5 cards, one player over here with another hand of 5 cards. One at a time, you play a card, and that is the card that you have to trump or beat or match. And these are games like Big Two or Uno. In the case of Uno, the idea is if somebody plays down a red 5, you have to play either a 5 or a card that is red. It's not exactly trumping, but you know, the idea is that you have a very specific set of cards that you're able to play out of your whole hand. Niji-sanji has more volume. Yes, that is 100% true. I think that for the purposes of a small game project like mine, because this isn't like a big corporate published idea that I want to do. Like, I'm not making the next Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering, so it wouldn't make sense for me as a one-person developer to sort of have a huge swath of characters. It's more like Hololive is a very focused set of people and characters, so I think it's just a good template to use. Reminder: this is Hololive is just being used as a template, just so that I have a good idea of how I want the theme of my game to inform the mechanics of my game. But yeah, so it's a trump game where you have to, if they play a red 5, you have to play a 5 or a red. In the case of a game like Big Two, it's that you are playing sort of you're playing with a very basic poker like deck of cards, and you play poker hands. So you maybe play 4, 5, 6. That's 5. If they play the cards 4, 5, 6, you either have to play 4, 5, 6. I keep writing 4, 5, 5 of a higher value, and usually that's based on the suits of the cards, like hearts, diamonds, clubs, spades. Or you have to play 5, 6, 7. So the idea of a trump game is that each person takes turns playing 1 to maybe 5 or 6 cards, and the next person has to match or beat whatever that is. So that's the kind of game that I want to make. That is the very core mechanic that I want this game to have. It's a trump game where you have 4 players and you each take turns playing a card or a set of cards. So it's a card game, it's a party game, it's a trump game. So those are the very 3 base mechanics of the game. You're interacting with the game through cards. It's going to be a very short, simple, easy to play, easy to understand, easy to learn, easy to figure out game that anybody can get into. It is a trump game in which one person plays a card or a set of cards, and you go around in a circle trying to beat or match whatever that is. That is the very basis of this game. Let me move that. Whoops. I think more of the stuff here is being explained by me than written down. I feel like I'm not writing that much down. So my screen is going to be rather unimpressive for a little while. Wait, 1 sec. Oh, I need to hydrate. Oh yeah, I love Pikami. Pikami, Tomoshika, all the VOMs. I wish I knew more Japanese so I could watch them more. So I guess I kind of just watch Pikami there. So in terms of mechanics of the game, what I was thinking is it would have I'm trying to figure out how to sort this out in my mind because I've had a few ideas. I'm just trying to figure out what order I should go in here. So my idea is it would be sort of an in-between of like Big Two and Uno, in which you're not trying to match cards like in Uno, you're trying to trump cards, but I would also like the mechanic of being able to choose between either using the suit or the numbers in the same vein as Uno. So what I'm thinking is having either an array of numbers between 1 and 10, or a series of 10 different suits. Is suits spelt with an E for the purposes of this, or is that just sweets? Wait. It's just suits like a suit, right? Okay. Or 10 suits. And then, additionally, I want a... So the idea is, this is the primary trump mechanic. Which means, this is what's going to be informing how you beat the previous person's card. You know, a 2's bigger than a 1, a 5's bigger than a 3. That's going to be the trump mechanic. So it would either be numbered suits, in which case it would be incredibly easy to figure out, or if it was 10 suits, it would be sort of like an elemental, maybe rock, paper, scissors type thing, where you have, you know, scissors cuts paper, paper covers rock, and rock smashes scissors. But like times 10, because I feel like 10 is a good vector. Vector, there's a cool word. 10 is a very generous but still somewhat restrictive vector in terms of having mechanics. Subcount and generation? I'm not sure. I feel like, I mean, it makes sense for, like, if it was... No, because I kind of feel like that's might be disparaging for some people, especially if I were to get permission from other indie VTubers and then all the cards were based on how popular they are. That kind of feels like it would be disparaging. Because, reminder, since this is about VTubers, it's still about actual people. It's not just characters. So while from a numbers and mechanical standpoint, having something based around subcount makes sense, since it's about actual people, it would feel weird. It would feel disparaging to those people and to make the game about. Would I be in the game? Oh yeah, I would be in the game. I would be the most powerful card. You know what I would be? I would be the Joker card. I would just be the card that they throw in that wasn't intended to be played with, but if you put it in the game, I destroy absolutely everything. I'm the wild card. I'm the most powerful card. I get to be just the bonus card that ruins everybody's day. But yeah, so the idea is either 10 numbers going 1 to 10, and bigger numbers trump smaller numbers. Very basic, very simple to understand, very easy. Additionally, I want a color. Oh god. You may notice my handwriting is pretty awful. Color mechanic. This would be something like... Let me just get some colors up on the screen. What are some good colors? I like purple. Let's go with yellow. This could be, and this could mean any number of things, but what I'm thinking is it would be similar to Uno's matching mechanic, in which you're either trying to match the number or the color. So on one hand, where you're, oh boy, that's way too thick. That's extra thick. Where you're trying to beat cards using the trump mechanic. In terms of the color mechanic, it would be more you're trying to match the colors. Additionally, I was thinking that the color would inform the flavor of the card or the general class that it might be a part of, which is similar to Magic the Gathering, in which maybe the blue cards are more based on defense and countering and mind and knowledge and the drawing of cards and the strategy in playing, chaining multiple cards in a row to do a crazy thing. And red is hot-headed and strong and full of a lot of really small things that love to deal damage to your